Plantation. He's on the line now. I've missed that voice. You keeping in good shape?
I hope so. I'm trying.
I tell you what. I wonder what you're gargling with for this working, James.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, I think it's a country air.
Yeah.
Country West Walian Welsh air, I think.
Lovely. So listen, I think, you know what, I think I'm well read, and I think, yeah, I know my history and stuff, and you boys always come, you sideswipe me out of nowhere. I'm like, who's this guy? Victor Ladillo Shara Martinez. And so then I started reading about him all day yesterday. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, he's a guy that kind of I was aware of since I was about 15 years old, because his name would always pop up in other people's records. Mm-hmm. You know, I first heard his name in a song called Washington Bullets, which is by The Clash. Mm-hmm. And then I heard him in a U2 song, a Christy Moore song. Yeah. You know, his name kept popping up everywhere until a couple of years back, somebody was one of my friends, Patrick Jones, who's the brother of Nicky in the band, was writing lots of poems about him, and a kind of concept album just kind of fell in my lap, really. Fantastic.
And he was a songwriter, Chilean musician, and theatre director, and activist, and then murdered by Pinochet. And so, I mean, the stories, you know, it's extraordinary.
It was. I mean, he's very enigmatic, kind of beautiful kind of man. And he obviously fought his corner to the end. He was murdered in 1973 by the right-wing coup that took over in Chile. Don't want to bring everybody's Saturday morning down. But kind of, if you go back and listen to his music, it's amazing. It's such a beautiful, plaintive, angelic voice. But the lyrics have such meaning, and they're very politically charged as well. So it's that mixture of beauty and politics. It's not a ranting kind of music. He's not a ranting kind of protest singer. He sings rather than shouts.
Right, okay. And Patrick, I mean, Patrick's story is really interesting. I didn't know too much about Nicky's brother at all, but you say he's been writing poetry since you guys were, you know, year dot back then, no?
Yeah, he was kind of always the older brother of Nicky in the band, so it's always that older brother figure that was that, you know, I'd been to see Whitesnake 3 times. I'd been to see Rush, and then he went off to America to study politics. So he's that kind of cool character, and he was always feeding us books and some poems and stuff. Not that Nick needed that, because Nick was a force in himself, along with Richey, you know. Yeah. But he kind of turned me onto the Beat generation, people like Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And so he was that kind of older, cool character, which we've stayed in touch with. He's had many plays on in the theatre and many poetry books published. So he's a force of nature, which I've ganged up with on this record.
Lovely. And I read a lovely story where you go back and you go back and to record the record, and you see him and you'd see your dad. You dropped in to see your dad. I remember the last time I think. Probably not the last time I saw you, but maybe an earlier session you did for us. It was around Christmas time, and you said, "You know what, I'm looking forward to going back to see my dad, because my dad does he always does 2 great roasts at Christmas." So whenever I read anything about your dad now, I always think of just this guy slaving over a cooker with 2 great, like a dark meat and a light meat somewhere in the oven. Is that right? Is he still?
I know I'm talking about this the wrong time of year, but Christmas dinner was. You had special big Alan Partridge plates, and then kind of like there would be 4 meats on the bottom of the plate, and you'd have to fight through all the vegetables to get to the 4 guest meats. So like, I've tried to get away with that with my family, but they're not having it.
And the Manics you've got some NHS gigs coming up in the end of the year, maybe early next year, no?
Hopefully, yeah. There were 2 gigs we're going to do in December. The first night was going to be for NHS employees, so you just had to apply for a ticket and show proof of employment with the NHS from anywhere in Britain. And then the second night was all the money went to an NHS trust. And hopefully those gigs will happen. Yeah. They're all sold out. They sold out within, an hour, because they were free. The first night was. But kind of hopefully that will happen. But of course, the promoters will have other dates just in case of any eventuality with what we're going through now.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, you're going to pick a rave track for us. Thank you very much. Let's do the jingle, please, if you would, Mike. So this is like 1 foot in the rave, essentially, is the idea here. So listen, back in the day, I would have thought you'd be into, more cross country and prog rock, but you were still dancing and raving back in the day.
I like to think that I had it all covered. Dermot. It's like, but kind of, I remember there was this time when obviously there was that program called The Tube that was on in the 80s, which was so influential because you'd see music and videos that you'd never otherwise see.
Oh, yeah, blew your mind, didn't it?
Yeah, and they played this song by a band from Washington in 1986. The band called Trouble Funk, and it was this song called Still Smoking, and it just blew our minds. So whenever we went to a nightclub, we'd always... The litmus test for whether the nightclub was good is if they had this track.
Right, okay.
Usually they didn't.
And Nicky, as a kind of, we always ask what clubs you would frequent back in the day. What was the name of the clubs you went to?
Okay, there was Rudy's in Newport, Metro's in Newport, Club Bach in Cardiff, and the Avery in Swansea. So Newport, Swansea, and Cardiff covered there.
Wow, yeah, really. All right, mate. Lovely talking to you.
Take care.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, mate. All right, so Nicky Wire's choice. Still Smoking, Trouble Funk. And James in Bradfield's choice.